Last episode, I turned my parents' garage into a paint booth, and this episode is time to actually use it, which means we need to paint a car. And the car we are painting is my Miata that I have had for, well, 2 years. So this is the car that we're going to be painting, and today we are going to be spending the whole day prepping this car for paint, which includes sanding everything down, filling and smoothing all the small little dents that it's accumulated over the 30 plus years that it's been on this earth. It is in desperate need of a paint job. Now, it actually looks pretty fine when you look at it initially, but there's a bunch of small areas like on the front. This is a different color than the hood just because of the way that it's faded over time. There's a bunch of nicks on the front. When you come to the back of the car, it's a little tougher to see, but this centerpiece is actually a different fade than the top and the back, so it's just time for this entire car to get a respray. On top of that, you guys know the bigger picture, that this is going to be my time to practice for my Supra. Now, I've wanted to paint a car legitimately for a long time, and now I'm at the point where I'm actually going to be able to do that. I get a try, which is really exciting for me. So I've never done anything to anywhere close as extensive as this, and I'm excited to dive in. I'm incredibly nervous as well, but I'm excited to dive in and see how it goes. I got new merch. I spent a whole bunch of time designing over 20 new designs for you guys by hand. Go give them a look at philsupra.com. There's so many different colors for each design, as well as more than just t-shirts and sweatshirts. So go ahead and give a look down below. I put a whole bunch of effort into this, so you guys would have a bunch of more options, so go check those out in the link down below. All right, let's get back to the video. So how are we going to attack this? Well, let me walk you through it. The very first thing that I'm going to do is to go around with a pen, a Sharpie, and circle and mark every area that has a small little ding. Now, the reason I'm doing this first is that way I can go through, sand those specific areas down, put on filler, and let it begin to harden. Now, this will actually save me a lot of time because if I sand the whole car and then fill afterwards, I'm essentially gonna wait a few hours just to finish sanding in order to get to a point where I then have to wait again. So if I can get these areas marked out, scuffed up, and then have the filler on, I can continue sanding the rest of the car while I'm waiting for these areas to dry enough to sand. So that's where we're going to start. After that's drying, we're going to go ahead and sand the entire car with 220 and 600 grit sandpaper. I'm starting with 220 grit because the front has a bunch of rock chips that are going to take a little higher grit to be able to knock them down perfectly smooth. And then we'll come back over with 600 grit to make sure that it's not so rough that we're seeing any marks go through the paint, but it'll be smooth enough to get a nice gloss clear finish. We have a lot of work set up for us today, so let's grab a pen, mark up the spots, get the filler on, and get to sanding, and I'll catch you guys up later. See these little holes?
Yeah.
Philip's gonna fill them in with this stuff.
Are you painting it?
Not quite. I'm still working on making it really smooth. I want it to be smooth so when I paint it.
Are you painting it?
Not yet. This is just something else to make it ready for paint.
Do you need to do that?
I need to do this one.
Oh.
See how it has all these little holes in them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta cover those all up.
I slipped on.
Uh-oh. You slipping out here, kid?
I slipped on that.
Why are you slipping? Alright.
I just need to clean this off.
Okay, be careful though, don't knock it over. We have sanded, we have filled, we have put putty on, and now it's time to sand the entire car. So we're gonna hit everything with 220 grit sandpaper, and we're going to get the car to the stage where we're ready for paint. This process is gonna take a little bit of time, but we are gonna get the entire car ready for paint. So this should be the last or second to last step before you're actually ready to start cleaning it off before we tape it off. So we're gonna need to sand it, and then we're going to need to clean the car to get all the dust off, and then we're gonna tape everything off, make sure it's all dried out for tomorrow so we're ready to paint. So let's go ahead and get everything all sanded up now. My hands look like they're completely sunburnt, and my arms too. We currently have the entire car sanded down to 220 grit sandpaper, and we are at the stage where we need to just prime the car a little bit, just the spots that we had to sand deeper, and then wash the car so we can get it ready to paint tomorrow. So here's what we have to actually prime. We're gonna prime all these areas with metal and with filler because the filler has slightly different texture, so I just wanna make sure that I get that covered over before we actually paint it, so I don't want those spots showing up underneath. Also, a little funny fact about this car was repainted here on the back, and you could tell because of two reasons. One was the reason I could tell because I talked to the previous owner. Secondly, this looks white in comparison because they used a clear coat on this. Meanwhile, Miatas from factory had a single stage paint, so they were completely red when you sand it because the top color is the red color. Here on the back was clear coated, the rear bumper was clear coated, and the bottom half of the passenger side was also clear coated. And you could tell that it stops there at the door and doesn't go all the way to the front. So what we're going to do next is we're going to prime those areas. We're gonna let them completely dry out, and then we're gonna wash the car with a degreaser, plain water, and I'm gonna use a scratchy scrub pad to make sure that everything gets perfectly cleaned and scuffed up to one final softer grit, and then we're gonna go ahead and let the car dry out overnight so we can then tape it and paint it tomorrow. We are really close. One more step. Okay, 2 more steps, 3 more steps, like 20 more steps. Come on, something else is gonna pop up. Let's go ahead and get the car primed up. So, we're prepped. This is so weird. It's an odd feeling to be at this stage, especially with this car, which I was like, it'd be great to prep and paint kind of as a practice run before the Supra, but I never thought it'd actually happen, and yeah, here we are. So, I brought it inside the garage, I closed everything up, and I opened all the doors and everything on the car. So what this is going to do is it's going to let the car completely dry out overnight, and the reason I opened the doors and everything as well, so this way when I'm using the paint gun and shooting compressed air at the car, it's not going to dislodge anything that possibly would have been locked in a shut door, shut trunk or something, and leak out some water onto the car tomorrow as we're painting. It'll keep it completely dried out, so that way tomorrow when we paint, it's going to be a non-issue. So essentially the plan tomorrow is we're going to need to mask up, and then we're going to get straight to painting. So super simple, time to get a good night's rest, and we'll come back tomorrow ready to paint. I'll see you guys then. After a good night of sleep, it's time to start taping off the car. Now this is gonna take a lot of work, and I'm ready to just dive right into it. So we're gonna tape off the car today. We're gonna get all our materials to finish painting it, which I have most of them behind me. I just need to get a couple extras, and then we're gonna actually paint the car today, and it should all go well. Assuming nothing goes wrong. Nothing will ever go wrong. It's my first ever paint job in a makeshift booth that I just set up a couple days ago. I really don't see anything that could go wrong. All right, let's start taping off the car because we got a lot to do and we need to dive right in. Let's go. let's get to painting. Alright, pardon the sound quality, but it still smells pretty bad in here, and I don't want to take this off, and I'm not using my normal mic and camera. So anyway, here's an update after spraying the sealer coat. So most of it went on alright. There's a bit of orange peel, unfortunately, which is semi-expected from the first time, but the trunk needs to be wet sanded again before we go ahead and spray the actual base coat itself. So it's tough to tell, but right here, there's a bunch of marks that didn't get evened out well enough, and same there's a spot over here that didn't quite get smoothed out enough. So we're going to wet sand the trunk, and then we're going to go straight to spraying the top coat. So that's a quick update. We're going to go ahead and get back to spraying now. Alright, so I've officially finished painting the Miata. There's 4 layers of clear on there. I wanted to go overboard so that way I could wet sand some of it off in case there's orange peel, which I'm assuming there's going to be. It's exactly what you could expect a first time paint job with 0 experience in a DIY garage paint booth to be like. So we're going to let it sit and dry overnight, and then we're going to go ahead and paint the wheels, pull it out, and give it a good look in the sun. So, biggest part is done now. Alright, we are back in the garage. We have the wheels taken off. I didn't want to show the process of taking them off. I mean, you know how wheels come off, but I didn't want to leak the color of the car, although it's red. I didn't want to leak the results. So anyway, we have our 4 wheels and our 4 hubcaps, and essentially all that we're doing is we're just respraying them silver. Now, this silver has gone through better days. It's just time for a refresh. Like, it looks decent, but it's definitely seen some good wear and tear. So all we're going to do is we're just going to sand everything down, respray them silver, and put them back on the car that's right up there. So without further ado, let's get to work. We finished! A lot of effort went into this one, and oh my goodness, it came out alright, but not great. So, a lot of orange peel, but it was a great learning experience, and I am excited to go to the next step and try it again. So I learned a lot from my first experience painting a car, and I'm gonna do a breakdown in my next video to kind of go through all the things that I learned, because there is a lot to learn. Now, coming up, what do we actually have? Because I know a lot of you want to get back to the Supra, but these are necessary episodes. Also, so I have 2 more videos coming out before we go back to the Supra again, at least 2 more, and this will give me time to source the paint and materials that I need in order to be fully ready for the Supra. So the next videos will be a full build recap on the Miata, since I never did one of those, or then an evaluation of the process that it took to paint, as well as a comparison of, is it actually worth building your own home setup? After those 2 videos come out, I should have enough time to get myself enough paint for the Supra so we could then actually paint that and be done with phase 1 of the Supra, which I am extremely excited for. But this was a much needed refresher for this Miata, and something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. So as I mentioned in the previous video, 4+ years of work leading up to this point, so I'm glad I got the first one done. So that's incredible. Also, I checked my stats. Only 2% of you guys watching this video are actually subscribed. So consider subscribing, please. That would be fantastic and would mean the world to me. Other than that, again, check out the merch from the link down below. It's all brand new, so many new designs. Check them out. I'll see you guys next time. Adios.